Country music has always had its wild cards, those with rough voices, hard lives, and outlaw reputations. But some legends weren't just rebellious, they were dangerous. They started bar fights, got into shootouts, or spiraled into chaos behind the scenes. Their music made them famous, but their actions made them feared. Here are 20 of the most dangerous old country legends who were out of control. Number 20. Jerry Lee Lewis. To fans, Jerry Lee Lewis was a fiery genius with a piano. His country hits in the late 60s and early 70s, like What's Made Milwaukee Famous and Another Place, Another Time, brought new life to his career. He was hailed as a fearless performer, known for his pounding keys and high-energy shows. On stage, he was magnetic, wild, exciting, and impossible to ignore. He seemed untouchable, like a man who ran on pure electricity. Chaos, though, wasn't just part of his act. It followed him everywhere. Lewis shot his bass player in the chest during a drunken dispute and later drove to Graceland with a loaded gun, crashing into Elvis Presley's gate while demanding to see him. His 13-year-old cousin bride caused an international scandal. Later, he faced arrests for tax fraud and assault, and rumors swirled of violent outbursts and destruction backstage. Offstage, he was volatile, reckless, and feared by those closest to him. He may have been called the Killer for his piano style, but the name fit far too well in real life. And if Jerry Lee played with fire, the next outlaw lived right in the middle of it. David Allan Coe appeared to fans as a rough-edged outlaw hero. With a gravelly voice and a guitar slung low, he sang about blue-collar grit in songs like Long-Haired Redneck and You Never Even Called Me by My Name. He presented himself as a man of the people, someone who lived hard and sang harder. To many, he was a living embodiment of the outlaw country movement, a fearless artist who didn't bow to Nashville rules. But the truth behind the music was far more troubling. Coe spent years in prison, claimed to have been on death row for murder, and cultivated an image soaked in danger. His underground albums were loaded with racist, violent, and explicit content that shocked even his most loyal fans. He fought with other artists, threatened journalists, and was banned from numerous venues due to his unpredictable behavior. Even among outlaws, Coe was considered a liability, too controversial, too dangerous, and too far gone. Coe wasn't just playing a character. He was living the most dangerous version of country. And while he took pride in being banned, the next legend kept losing control despite trying to stay clean. Johnny Paycheck was once seen as the blue-collar poet of country music, with hits like Take This Job and Shove It and I'm the Only Hell Mama Ever Raised. He gave voice to the working man's rage and pride. Fans saw him as honest, relatable, and fiercely independent. His rebel image only made him more beloved, and for a time he rode high on the charts as a symbol of real-life country grit. Over time, though, that image cracked. Paycheck's life spiraled into legal trouble, addiction, and violence. He was arrested multiple times for assault and drug possession, and in 1985 he shot a man in the head during an argument in a bar, earning him a prison sentence for aggravated assault. Friends described him as erratic and dangerous when drunk, and promoters eventually refused to book him. His music began to fade behind a cloud of courtroom appearances and substance abuse. Even his allies couldn't defend his behavior. Johnny sang about hard living, but he also lived it at full throttle. And if Paycheck went to prison for pulling the trigger, the next country legend nearly did the same. To fans and fellow musicians, Billy Joe Shaver was a songwriting legend with a Texas twang and a poet's soul. He wrote many of the songs on Waylon Jennings' Honky Tonk Heroes, and classics like Old Five and Dimers Like Me made him a cult favorite among traditionalists. He was known for his honesty, wit, and deeply human lyrics. On stage, he was humble and magnetic, a true outlaw with a heart. Offstage, though, Shaver lived dangerously close to the edge. In 2007, he shot a man in the face outside a bar in Lorena, Texas, claiming self-defense after the man asked to be shot. He was later acquitted, but the trial highlighted decades of turbulent behavior. Shaver struggled with drug and alcohol abuse, and his reputation for wild outbursts often preceded him. Even his supporters admitted he was unpredictable. The same raw energy that made his songs powerful often made his presence unnerving. Shaver's legacy as a songwriter is secure, but so is his legend as one of country's wildest men. And if he pulled the trigger and walked away, the next artist didn't need a weapon to cause destruction. Waylon Jennings looked every bit the outlaw hero, with his leather vests, gritty voice, and hits like Luckenbach, Texas, and Are You Sure Hank Done It This Way. He stood as a symbol of freedom in country music. Fans adored his independent streak and how he broke from Nashville's control to forge his own path. To the world, he was a rebel with purpose, a voice for authenticity in a polished industry. Behind the scenes, however, Waylon was drowning in cocaine and chaos. By the late 1970s, he was reportedly spending over $1,500 a day on drugs, often disappearing for days in a haze. He was arrested by the DEA in a 1977 bust involving a package of cocaine sent through the mail, though the charges were later dropped. Bandmates feared his violent mood swings and destructive spirals. He nearly lost everything before finally sobering up in the 1980s. For years, the outlaw lifestyle wasn't just branding, it was killing him. Waylon finally got clean, but not before burning through money, bridges, and time. And while he rebelled against control, the next legend never learned to control himself. Johnny Cash was the man in black, a towering figure of American music. With hits like Folsom Prison Blues and Ring of Fire, he earned respect across genres. Fans saw him as a voice for the broken and forgotten, and his prison concerts turned him into a cultural icon. Despite his dark image, Cash was beloved for his compassion, spirituality, and honesty. Yet, for much of his life, Johnny was a man unraveling. He popped pills by the handful, wrecked hotel rooms, and was arrested numerous times for drug possession and disorderly conduct. In 1967, he accidentally started a forest fire in California that destroyed over 500 acres of land and killed endangered condors. He claimed the incident didn't bother him. His addiction strained his marriage and nearly ended his career. At his worst, he was violent, depressed, and completely out of control. It took years of recovery and a deep dive into faith for him to reclaim stability. Cash eventually redeemed himself, but his demons were real and dangerous. And while he walked out of the fire, the next outlaw stayed trapped inside it. Hank Williams Sr. was the original voice of heartbreak. With songs like Your Cheatin' Heart and I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, he didn't just sing pain, he was pain. Fans saw him as a tortured genius, a lanky poet whose music felt like confession. Despite his short career, he became the blueprint for country soul, worshipped by fans and fellow artists alike. Though adored on stage, Hank's real life was consumed by demons. His chronic back pain led to a vicious addiction to morphine and booze. He was frequently too intoxicated to perform, getting fired from the Grand Ole Opry and blackballed from venues. His temper flared in drunken rages, and he'd disappear on benders for days. In his final months, he was frail, slurring, and barely coherent. At just 29, he was found dead in the backseat of his Cadillac, alone, frozen, and filled with pills and alcohol. The most tragic part, no one was surprised. Even his closest friends had seen it coming. Hank left a legacy no one could match, but a cautionary tale everyone feared. And where he drank himself to death, the next outlaw drank until he pulled the plug on someone else. To the public, Spade Cooley was a polished Western swing bandleader with Hollywood charm. In the 1940s, he filled dance halls and starred in films, earning a reputation as the king of Western swing. Fans saw a man with charisma, class, and catchy tunes. He seemed like a showbiz success story. That illusion shattered in 1961. Behind closed doors, Cooley was violent and abusive. After accusing his wife of infidelity, he beat and tortured her for hours in their home, ultimately murdering her in front of their teenage daughter. The details were horrific. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. 8 years later, during a special furlough to perform at a benefit concert, he collapsed backstage and died of a heart attack. The crowd didn't know they'd just watched the final act of a monster who had once dazzled them on stage. Cooley didn't just fall, he shattered. And if he died a disgrace, the next man flirted with disaster every day of his life. Merle Haggard was country's poet of the people. With hits like Mama Tried and Okie from Muskogee, he spoke for the working class and the broken. Fans saw a reformed outlaw, a man who did time and came back better for it. His redemption arc became part of his legend, proof that second chances were possible. But Merle was never far from trouble. He spent years in and out of jail before his music took off, and once escaped from jail only to get caught hours later. Fame didn't stop the chaos. He abused cocaine in the late 70s, wrecked hotel rooms, and blew through millions. His moods turned violent, especially when drinking. He once fired bandmates on stage mid-song. Though he eventually sobered up, Those who worked with him said they never knew if they'd be dealing with Merle the artist or Merle the storm. His image was redemption, but it came after years of real damage. Merle turned his chaos into art, but only just. And if he barely kept it together, the next artist didn't even try. Townes Van Zandt was a songwriter. Brilliant, tragic, and unforgettable. His haunting lyrics and fragile voice made songs like Poncho and Lefty staples of country storytelling. Fans and peers alike revered him as a tortured genius, too delicate for the world, but too talented to ignore. In reality, Townes lived like a ghost, drifting between cities, bars, and back alleys. He was addicted to heroin and alcohol, regularly vanishing for weeks at a time. Friends said he'd inject drugs before taking the stage, perform with bruises and black eyes, and disappear again. He suffered multiple falls, including one from a fourth-story window. Mental illness, especially bipolar disorder, plagued him, and his refusal to seek treatment only deepened the spiral. By the end, he was emaciated, broken, and singing to near-empty rooms. He died on New Year's Day, 1997, at 52, just hours after one last drink. Townes didn't die tragically, he lived tragically, and where his pain was internal, the next legend's fury exploded outward. Charlie Rich was the silver fox of country, smooth, soulful, and beloved for hits like Behind Closed Doors and The Most Beautiful Girl. Fans saw him as polished and romantic, a crooner who added elegance to country's rougher edges. With crossover success and a suave image, Rich became one of the genre's most respected performers in the 1970s. But behind the tuxedo was a man unraveling. Rich struggled with alcohol addiction for much of his career. At the 1975 CMA Awards, while visibly intoxicated, he burned the envelope, announcing John Denver as Entertainer of the Year, live on national TV. That one moment torched his mainstream reputation. He alienated peers, lashed out at interviewers, and often arrived at shows too drunk to perform. Industry insiders labeled him unstable, and promoters quietly distanced themselves. Even fans were left wondering which version of Rich would show up, if at all. The industry loved his voice, but feared his volatility. Charlie's fire was literal and figurative, and while he torched the industry's patience, the next outlaw broke every rule just to stay alive. Steve Earle emerged in the mid-1980s as a gritty, hard-driving force in country music. With songs like Guitar Town and Copperhead Road, he earned a devoted fan base and critical praise. Fans admired his raw lyrics, anti-establishment streak, and working man honesty. He was hailed as the heir to the outlaw legacy, a rebel with poetry in his bones. His personal life, though, was a mess of addiction and destruction. Earle spiraled into heroin and crack cocaine, was arrested numerous times, and eventually landed in jail after failing to appear in court. At one point, he was living on the streets pawning guitars for drug money. Friends feared he wouldn't survive the decade. His health, reputation, and career were in ruins. Even when sober, his temper and bluntness made him hard to work with. It took nearly losing everything, multiple marriages, label deals, and fans, before he finally cleaned up in the 1990s. Steve Earle came back from the dead, but not everyone gets that luxury. And if he clawed his way out, the next legend went down in flames. Tanya Tucker shot to fame as a teenager with Delta Dawn, quickly earning a place among country royalty. Her bold voice, fearless attitude, and early success made her a fan favorite. By her 20s, she was one of country's brightest stars. Glamorous, talented, and fiercely independent, she became the face of youthful rebellion in a genre known for tradition. That rebellion often led to disaster. Tucker dove headfirst into drugs, wild partying, and high-profile, often violent relationships. Her affair with Glen Campbell was filled with public blow-ups, mutual drug use, and physical altercations. She overdosed more than once, vanished from tours, and reportedly fought with bandmates and producers. For years, she was seen as unpredictable, even dangerous to work with. The industry pulled back, and her reputation suffered. Only later, after years in the wilderness, did she stage a celebrated comeback. But the damage had already been done. Tucker eventually clawed back her career, but her path was littered with chaos. And if she exploded in her youth, the next outlaw made his entire life one long explosion. George Jones had the voice of a broken angel. Songs like He Stopped Loving Her Today and The Grand Tour turned him into a country music immortal. Fans saw him as the ultimate singer of sorrow, an artist who felt every note he sang. Even amid personal drama, his voice remained unmatched. To the public, he was revered, even worshipped. Behind the scenes, he was a wreck. Jones was arrested repeatedly for drunk driving, assaulted people during blackout binges, and vanished for weeks at a time. His drinking became legendary, and so did the consequences. He missed so many shows, he was nicknamed No-Show Jones. One infamous story saw him driving a lawnmower to the liquor store after his wife hid the car keys. He battled cocaine addiction, paranoia, and violent mood swings that terrified those around him. For decades, promoters and managers dreaded having to deal with him. His talent was otherworldly, but so was the chaos. George's voice made him immortal. His behavior nearly made him disappear, and where he self-destructed behind the scenes, the next legend burned bridges face first. Hank Williams Jr. was born into a legend's shadow, but he carved out his own rowdy path. With Southern rock anthems like Family Tradition and Whiskey Bent and Hellbound, he became a voice for rebel country fans across America. To his base, he was fearless, proud, and untamed, the ultimate outlaw heir who never held back. But Bocephus lived dangerously. He nearly died in 1975 after falling 500 feet off a Montana mountain, suffering multiple skull fractures and facial disfigurement. After recovering, he dove deeper into drinking and drugs, picking fights, getting arrested, and spiraling through failed relationships. His temper was infamous. He once assaulted a hotel guest over a pool game and was arrested for disorderly conduct more than once. His political tirades, including comparing President Obama to Hitler, got him pulled from Monday Night Football and shunned by media outlets. He alienated fans and colleagues alike, even when sober. His unpredictability made him one of Nashville's most feared voices. Hank Jr. didn't just inherit the name, he inherited the chaos. And if he survived the fall, the next legend went headfirst into his. Justin Townes' Earle was hailed as the next great American songwriter. With albums like Harlem River Blues, he turned heartache into poetry and carved out a space in Americana that was entirely his. Fans admired his vulnerability, his talent, and his ability to blend tradition with modern edge. He was on the verge of something bigger. Yet inside, Justin was unraveling. Addicted to heroin and plagued by demons from an early age, he battled substance abuse for much of his life. He entered rehab multiple times, overdosed more than once, and often went missing between tours. Even those closest to him couldn't always keep track of his spiral. His final years were quieter, but no more stable. In August 2020, he died from an accidental overdose of fentanyl-laced cocaine. He was only 38. Friends described him as gentle but volatile, a man constantly haunted by his past and his own expectations. His death was tragic, but tragically predictable. Justin's promise died with him, and while his pain took him quietly, the next outlaw made his ending as loud as his life. Shooter Jennings was born outlaw royalty. The son of Waylon Jennings and Jesse Coulter, he carried the torch of rebellion with albums like Put the O Back in Country and Electric Rodeo. To fans, he was a truth teller, a brash, brilliant outsider who called out fake cowboys and industry phonies. That same attitude made him dangerous in the industry. Shooter was infamous for fiery interviews, name-calling, and openly attacking pop country stars like Jason Aldean and Luke Bryan. He refused to play by radio rules and got blacklisted by Nashville's elite. Behind the scenes, he was described as confrontational, abrasive, and hard to manage. His substance use early in his career didn't help, and his refusal to cooperate with major labels closed doors fast. While fiercely loyal to his fans, he made enemies everywhere else. Shooter never tried to smooth things over. He burned bridges on purpose. Shooter's mouth and mind were weapons, and if he stirred controversy with words, the next outlaw did it with his fists. Hank Snow was known as a gentleman on stage. With hits like I'm Moving On and Golden Rocket, he became a Grand Ole Opry legend and one of country's most respected early stars. Fans admired his dapper style, clean delivery, and seemingly wholesome image. For years, he was considered a model of classic country success, but the man behind the suit carried a much darker story. Snow's son later accused him of severe physical abuse, detailing a childhood of terror and trauma. Others close to him confirmed his controlling, obsessive behavior, particularly toward his family. While he maintained a polished public persona, those within his circle spoke of deep-rooted rage and emotional instability. His relationships were strained, and former collaborators noted he was difficult, sometimes cruel, and obsessed with appearances. The industry never addressed these accusations during his life, but whispers never stopped. Snow left behind a legacy of classic hits, but also questions. And while his violence stayed hidden, the next outlaw's darkness was broadcast to the world. Willie Nelson is country's most beloved outlaw, a national treasure with a braided crown and a cloud of smoke trailing him. With On the Road Again and Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, he captured America's heart. Fans saw him as a peaceful rebel, a hippie in cowboy boots with wisdom in every lyric. But Willie's road was littered with chaos. He was arrested multiple times for marijuana possession, clashed with the IRS over millions in unpaid taxes, and lived on the run from lawsuits and failed business ventures. Early in his career, he was a raging alcoholic who wrecked cars and got into brawls. He once allegedly beat a man senseless for mocking his music. His personal life was stormy. Multiple divorces, band disputes, and a history of vanishing for days at a time to chase a high. Though he mellowed with age, his earlier years were anything but calm. Behind that grin was a man many feared when the cameras stopped rolling. Willie made peace with his past, but not all outlaws do. And now we arrive at the one who was truly too wild for the world. Glen Campbell was the golden boy of country pop. With hits like Wichita Lineman and Rhinestone Cowboy, he became a household name in the 1960s and 70s. His TV show, movie appearances, and charm gave him cross-genre success. Fans adored his smile, his sincerity, and his unmatched guitar skills. He was seen as one of the cleanest, most beloved stars of the era. But behind the spotlight was a man on the edge. Glen battled cocaine and alcohol addiction for years. His relationship with Tanya Tucker was marked by physical fights, tabloid meltdowns, and police involvement. He once trashed an entire hotel room during a rage episode and was arrested for drunk driving and assaulting a police officer. He alienated his band, lashed out at managers, and became impossible to control. His career nearly collapsed under the weight of his addictions. Even during his comeback, the scars of his self-destruction lingered. The rhinestones sparkled, but the man wearing them was falling apart. Glen wore rhinestones on stage, but offstage, he was dangerously raw. And his story, like so many others, proves that behind the music, country's brightest stars sometimes burned the darkest. The outlaw life came with a cost, and these legends paid it. Some burned out fast, others left a long trail of wreckage. Which one took you by surprise? Let us know in the comments, and hit subscribe to hear more untold stories from behind the curtains of country music.